Reset your mindset. Best morning motivation. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a place few ever look. The engine room of your life. Your mindset. Right now, you're probably lying there, the day's noise still echoing faintly in your thoughts. Maybe you've had one of those mornings. Phone buzzing before your feet hit the floor. Brain hijacked by a flood of to-dos, social media highlights, and that vague, quiet pressure that you're already behind. But let me ask, did you actually wake up today, or did you just resume an old program? You probably won't survive this mental autopilot much longer. Not because you're not strong enough, but because your inner system was never meant to be run by default. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know, where are you listening from and what time is it right now in your corner of the world? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up, eyes open, and your hand, almost like it has a life of its own, reaches for your phone. The feed starts. You're not even fully awake, and already your brain has been given a script. The same mental script as yesterday. The same worries, the same pace, the same scrolling. That isn't awareness, that's repetition. And repetition without intention, that's programming. The Stoics saw this long before smartphones existed. They noticed that most people don't live, they reenact. They called it living without philosophy. A body going through the motions, but the mind left behind. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Harvard researcher Dan Gilbert found that our minds wander nearly 47% of the day. That means you're not here. Nearly half your life is being spent somewhere else. Reliving arguments, anticipating stress, replaying failure. All of it, unconsciously. You're not choosing this. It's just what happens when you never reset. Stoicism doesn't label this as evil. It simply warns. If you're not aware of the wheel, someone or something else is steering it. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. In the chaos of leading Rome, battles outside the gates and betrayals within, he began each morning not by checking updates, but by checking himself. With one sentence: the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. None of them can hurt me. That was his mental armor, his reminder to switch off default mode and choose deliberate thought. Now imagine your brain like a train. In default mode, it follows old tracks laid down by childhood fears, teenage rejections, missed opportunities, and social conditioning. You wake up and that train is already moving, headed to the same familiar stops: anxiety, self-doubt, procrastination. But here's the thing. You're not stuck with those tracks. You can build new ones. You can reset the system. The default mode is never really neutral. It's often negative because survival wiring in the brain favors what's familiar, not what's good. That's why you need deliberate mode, your conscious mind stepping in to say, hold on, is this thought even mine? Picture this. You're mid-argument, voice rising, heart pounding. But instead of spiraling, you stop, you breathe, you ask, is this really how I want to show up? That moment, that pause, is you stepping into deliberate mode. It's small, it's quiet, but it changes everything. Stoicism teaches us that we don't have to be ruled by instinct. In fact, Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom isn't about escaping your job or your relationship or your city. It's about being able to observe a thought and not obey it. Now, let's be honest. You won't live in deliberate mode all day. You're not a robot, and that's not the goal. But if you can access it, if you can choose it when it matters most, That's where transformation happens. Think of it like coding. The subconscious is the operating system. You can't rewrite all of it in one sitting, but you can start inserting new lines of code, new thought patterns, new beliefs. And once those become your defaults, you stop needing motivation. You stop needing reminders. The system runs itself, but now it runs in your favor. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming aware. Start small. Pause 3 times a day. Just ask yourself, what program am I running right now? Is it one rooted in fear, comparison, old trauma? Or is it one you chose, one that aligns with who you're trying to become? Remember this: if you don't write the code, the world will. And the world doesn't care who you are becoming. It only wants you to keep scrolling, reacting, consuming. So write your own script. It doesn't need to be poetic. It just needs to be true. Something like, I return to myself. I am not my fear. I am not my past. I choose again. And don't think you need a 60-minute meditation to do this. Sometimes all it takes is 60 seconds of stillness. Right now, as you're lying here, just breathe. Not to relax, but to reconnect. Imagine waking tomorrow, and instead of reaching for your phone, you reach for your mind. You ask it, where are we going today? Who am I showing up as? And if that answer is deliberate, if that answer is yours, then you've already won. Because the most dangerous thing isn't being lost. It's never realizing you were on autopilot at all. So pause, breathe, reset, and tomorrow, choose again. You don't begin most mornings. You resume them. Your thoughts, your mood, even the way you reach for the toothpaste, it's often just another loop from the day before. You believe you're moving forward, but deep inside you're circling the same drain. And most of the time you don't even notice. This is the trap of negative thought loops. Subtle, persistent, invisible, and lethal to your potential. It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you're broken. It's that you're running on an outdated program. A subconscious script written not by who you are, but by who you were, and what the world whispered when you weren't old enough to question it. Your mind, like a computer, doesn't need truth to function. It needs consistency. If a thought has been repeated enough, no matter how cruel or false, your brain locks it in and treats it as reality. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. Love isn't safe. These aren't facts. They're echoes that have become background music looping under every interaction. Stoic philosophers warned us about this long ago. Epictetus once said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." And here's where the trap tightens. The most powerful opinions aren't spoken aloud. They're internal, quiet, and unquestioned. Take this scene. A child just 8 years old is told by their teacher, "You're not really cut out for math." Maybe the teacher doesn't mean harm, but the words sink in, especially because the child is embarrassed. That moment gets replayed every time they open a calculator, every time they feel stuck with numbers, every time someone else gets it faster. One comment becomes a lifelong limitation. Now imagine how many of these minor moments you've unknowingly internalized. Historians and Stoic intellectuals still debate whether ancient Stoics like Seneca meant for their teachings to be applied, psychologically or spiritually or both. But the application remains stunningly modern. You must examine your thoughts the way a sculptor inspects every inch of marble, searching for cracks, lines, impurities that will shape the final statue. And your mind? It's been shaped. Not always by truth, but by trauma, fear, and accident. So here's a tool. Try it now. Write down one belief you whisper to yourself when things go wrong. Maybe it's, "I'm always too late," or "I don't deserve happiness. Now ask this: how many chances have I missed because of this belief? Then ask a harder question. If I keep believing this for 5 more years, who will I become? One entrepreneur shared how 7 words from his childhood, "We're not winners in this family," haunted him well into adulthood. He didn't even remember when or why his father said it, but it shaped his choices. He rejected promotions, downplayed successes, avoided leadership, not because he couldn't lead, but because a loop was running. He only began to break free when he started writing new thoughts, literally, recording them, speaking them aloud in the mornings. I am capable. I lead with confidence. I choose growth. At first it felt fake, but then slowly his identity began to shift. Not because he tricked himself, but because he finally chose what to believe. This is what reprogramming looks like. It's awkward at first, like learning to write with your non-dominant hand. But repetition is the key, not intensity, not enthusiasm, repetition. Here's what most people get wrong. They wait to feel the new belief before they speak it. But your brain doesn't work that way. Your brain listens to behavior more than emotion. Say, "I'm not afraid," enough times, and walk toward fear while saying it, and eventually that phrase sticks. Now take a breath. Seriously. Inhale slowly. Hold it. Let it out. As you breathe, imagine each old belief as code. Lines and lines of language installed years ago. Some were written by parents, teachers, coaches, bullies, media. Others, by your own younger self trying to protect you from pain. But you've outgrown those lines. They no longer serve you. And like any outdated system, they must be deleted. This doesn't mean forgetting your past. It means refusing to let it drive your present. The Stoics believed in personal authorship. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the most powerful empire in the world, still wrote daily reminders to himself. He didn't outsource his inner dialogue to anyone. His belief: the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What color is yours? Because here's the truth. If you don't choose what you think, your environment will. Every scroll, every careless comment becomes part of your programming. But if you can write even one new belief each morning and act on it, that's a revolution. So tomorrow, when you wake, don't just brush your teeth, brush your mind clean. Replace one thought, just one. Maybe this: I am not my worst moment, or I don't need proof to believe I'm enough. Or even, today I choose who I am becoming. Because once you start choosing, you start changing. Not through force, but through freedom. Most people don't wake into a new day. They wake into an old memory. Before your eyes have fully adjusted to the morning light, your brain is already time traveling, playing reruns from years ago. A careless word, a heartbreak that never fully healed, a regret you wish you could erase. And these aren't passive memories, they come back with teeth. The argument you had last week, still gnawing at your stomach. The failure from college, still casting a shadow over today's confidence. That one. Relationship that didn't end well, still teaching you not to trust even when no danger is present. You think it's behind you, but every morning it walks beside you. Silent, invisible, heavy. This is the cost of unresolved, past-based thinking. And it's more common than you know. The Stoics saw it too. Epictetus famously said, "You become what you give your attention to." And if your attention is trapped in past pain, that pain doesn't stay where it was. It becomes who you are. Here's the problem. Memory isn't just mental, it's chemical. Your brain doesn't simply recall events. It relives them. Same stress hormones, same heart rate, same muscle tension. You're not remembering, you're re-experiencing. Like a song that plays automatically when a certain smell or phrase triggers it. And this unconscious recall, it's exhausting. Like an app running in the background, draining your battery while you're trying to live the day. What's worse, you don't even realize it's happening. That's the scariest part. Historians still debate how much of Stoicism was meant to be therapeutic versus ethical philosophy. But one thing is certain, its tools work both ways. When Seneca said, "He suffers more than necessary," who suffers before it is necessary, he was pointing directly at this very human habit of reliving pain before life even demands it. It's not your fault you do this. Your brain is trying to protect you, reminding you of what hurt so you can avoid it again. But here's the issue. If you're always defending yourself from the past, you never fully arrive in the present. And the present, that's where your power lives. So what do? Start by detaching the emotional charge from your old memories. You don't need to forget what happened. You need to unhook from how it controls you. There's a tool for this. You've heard the word before, but maybe never really understood it. Meditation. Not incense and chanting, just presence. Just being with yourself long enough to recognize when your mind has drifted to yesterday. When you meditate, your brain waves slow down, from busy surface-level beta waves into slower, more creative alpha and theta states. These are the states where your subconscious mind becomes more accessible. And that's where the healing happens. Not because you're forcing yourself to forget, but because you're finally witnessing your own mind without reacting to it. Next, time an old thought rises. I failed that relationship. I should have spoken up. I messed up my chance. Try this. Pause and whisper to yourself, "Thank you, but I live here now." Not in 2016, not in that breakup, not in that missed opportunity. Here. Now. Because living in the past robs you of the only thing that can truly change your life, your present attention. There's a story that illustrates this perfectly. A man, betrayed by someone he loved, began to distrust everyone. Even years later, even in new relationships, he couldn't fully open up. It wasn't that anyone else had hurt him. His heart was simply still defending itself against a ghost. Only when he acknowledged the pain without judgment and gave himself permission to feel it without becoming it, did he finally begin to trust again. This is the hard truth. You can't build a new life in a haunted house. You must clear it out. Clear it with presence. Clear it with repetition. Clear it with compassion for your younger self who did the best they could with what they knew. Even ancient scripture speaks to this. In the Bible, Isaiah says, "Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old." Why? Because your focus feeds your future. What you keep thinking about gets stronger. What you release eventually fades. Of course, the past can teach you, but if you treat it like a prophecy instead of a lesson, it will keep rewriting today's script. So try this tonight, as you lie here. Think of one old memory that still stings. Picture it. Then, take a deep breath. And on the exhale say, "This shaped me, but it does not define me." Do this often enough and you start to take your power back, one breath, one memory, one day at a time. Because in the stillness, something magical happens. Your nervous system learns to stop firing the old alarm bells. And your heart, guarded for so long, can finally relax. Now ask yourself, if I didn't bring the past into today, and who would I be? If you didn't drag that shame or guilt or fear into this new morning, What would you dare to do? Would you speak more boldly, love more freely, smile more often? The past will always be a chapter in your book, but it should never hold the pen. You are not your memory. You are your attention. You are your choice to return to this moment again and again until it feels like home. That's how rebirth begins, not with fireworks, but with you, choosing peace in the quiet. And now that you've begun clearing space, it's time to fill it, to build strength where fear used to live, to become not just awake, but unshakable. Next, we step into the training ground, the warrior mindset. Morning doesn't begin when your alarm goes off. It begins the moment you decide who you are. You can wake up and scroll. You can sigh and mumble, "Here we go again." Or you can rise like a warrior, quiet, focused, intentional. Not the kind of warrior that charges into battle screaming, but the kind who sits in silence, sharpens his mind like a blade and whispers, "Today I fight." You see, most people stumble into the day hoping for strength. But a warrior builds it every single morning, and it starts with choice. You don't choose your emotions, but you choose what to do with them. That's where your power lives. Stoicism isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about mastering your response. As Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." A warrior knows this. The battle isn't outside, it's within. Some mornings the enemy is doubt. Other days it's procrastination, self-pity, or fear of judgment. But every day there's an opponent. And every day you can train to face it. Take a moment. Who are you when things get hard? When plans fall apart? When your confidence trembles? Most people freeze or flee. That's survival instinct. But a trained mind? It stays calm under fire. Not because it's fearless, but because it's practiced. That's what training the warrior mindset is all about. In Navy SEAL training, there's a brutal test. Trainees are bound hand and foot, tossed into a deep pool. The only way to pass? Stay calm. Don't thrash. Don't panic. Trust your lungs. Trust your stillness. They don't test your ability to swim. They test your ability to surrender without quitting. Because real strength isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of composure. Marcus Aurelius, facing wars and plagues, still chose discipline over despair. In meditations, he reminded himself daily, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." You have that power too. Right now, but don't wait until life hits you. Train now. Train in the small things. When your coffee spills, don't curse. When traffic is slow, don't rage. When your idea is ignored, don't spiral. Breathe. Center. Choose. That's training. Historians still debate whether Roman soldiers trained more intensely in war or in peace. But Stoic tradition leans toward peace because they knew the fiercest warriors are forged in stillness, not chaos. You can build this mindset anywhere. No sword required. It shows up in an uncomfortable conversation you don't avoid, in the fear you move through anyway, in the moment you speak truth when your voice shakes. David Goggins, former Navy SEAL, once weighed nearly 300 pounds and worked as an exterminator. No direction, no purpose. But when he chose to face the truth, no more lies, no more excuses, he discovered the power of discipline. Not flashy, not glamorous, just relentless. He lost over 100 pounds, ran ultra marathons, and rewired his life. Not because of motivation, because of mindset. That's the truth no one likes to say. You won't always feel strong, you won't always want to push, but warriors don't wait for perfect conditions. They act anyway. And so can you. Start small. Don't overcomplicate it. Write down one fear you'll face today. Just one. Then take a step toward it. Not around it. Not away from it. Toward. Maybe that's hitting send on an email you've rewritten 10 times. Maybe it's applying for something you don't feel ready for. Maybe it's telling someone how you really feel. You won't win every time. That's okay. A warrior isn't someone who never fails. It's someone who stands up again without losing themselves in the fall. And yes, people will doubt you. They'll say, relax, it's not that serious. They'll roll their eyes when you meditate, journal, train your mind, let them. They don't carry your dreams. They don't pay the price for your regrets. You do. And that means you decide what's worth fighting for. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. He didn't know if he'd ever be free, but he chose dignity every day. He trained his spirit not to break. That's the warrior's path. Quiet, inward, steady. Angela Duckworth calls it grit, passion, and perseverance over the long haul. Not glamorous, not viral, just doing what must be done day after day. So tomorrow morning, don't ask, do I feel ready? Ask, what would the warrior version of me do right now? Then do that. You'll be scared. Do it anyway. You'll want to delay. Do it anyway. You'll hear that voice whispering, who are you to try? Answer it with action, because that voice isn't you. It's your old self trying to survive. But you're not here to survive. You're here to rise. Rise not through perfection, but through practice, daily, repeatedly, until one morning you wake up and realize you've become unshakable. So set your mind like a blade. And tomorrow, draw it clean. Discipline isn't about waking up at 5 a.m. It's about what you do once you're awake. Anyone can rise early once in a while. Anyone can write a to-do list, hit the gym on a Monday, or meditate when they're already calm. But real discipline? It's what you do when you don't feel like doing anything at all. No inspiration, no cheerleaders, no immediate payoff. Just you. And the next right step. This is where most people stumble. They confuse motivation with movement, but the Stoics knew better. They didn't wait to feel like acting. They trained themselves to act, regardless, because freedom doesn't come from doing what you want. It comes from doing what's necessary, even when you don't want to. In fact, Stoicism defines discipline as the highest form of freedom. Freedom from emotional chaos, from impulsive choices, from the exhausting cycle of regret and excuse. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule by mood, he ruled by principle. In Meditations, he wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being, not the work of a king, the work of a human being, honest, consistent, committed." So, ask yourself this. What work of yours have you been avoiding? Not because you can't do it, but because it doesn't feel exciting anymore. Maybe it's getting back in shape, starting that project, repairing a relationship, building a habit. Whatever it is, stop waiting to feel good about it. Start doing it until it feels like you. Discipline is how you stop becoming a stranger to your own potential. Let me tell you about Mitch Presnick. He wasn't an athlete, a Navy SEAL, or a motivational speaker. Just a regular guy who struggled to build a workout habit. He tried every plan, every app. Nothing stuck, so he made a different commitment. Every day he'd go to the gym and sit. That's it. No workouts, no expectations. Just show up for 5 minutes. People thought he was wasting time, but he wasn't building muscle. He was building identity. The identity of someone who never breaks a promise to himself. And that identity, it changed everything. He eventually started working out. The workouts grew. His strength improved. Over time, he lost more than 100 pounds. Not because of willpower, but because of repetition. That's the secret. Whatever you repeat, you become. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience. But it doesn't care what you repeat, it doesn't judge, it just builds circuits. So if you tell yourself I'm not good enough every morning, that's a neural pathway. If you tell yourself I'm not a morning person, that's a neural pathway. If you hesitate before action and choose delay instead of discipline, that's a neural pathway. But the same is true when you say, I do hard things. I keep showing up. I don't negotiate with my goals. Every time you act in alignment with that thought, the path gets stronger, wider, easier to travel. And eventually it becomes your default. That's when discipline gets easier. Not because the tasks are easier, but because you've changed, like brushing your teeth. You don't wait to be inspired to brush. You do it because it's who you are. The same goes for journaling, meditating, working out, or taking difficult steps in your career. At first it feels unnatural, but over time, it becomes non-negotiable. Historians still debate whether Stoic journaling, especially Marcus Aurelius's, was meant for others or only himself. But that's the point. He wasn't writing for applause. He was repeating ideas until they became him. That's your job too. Not to impress, not to perform, but to engrave the identity you want into the marble of your life. So here's a challenge. Pick one small action you'll do every morning for the next 30 days. Just one. It could be writing down one intention, or taking 5 deep breaths before checking your phone, or saying aloud, I am the type of person who follows through. Stick it on your mirror. Whisper it while tying your shoes. Repeat it while walking to work. It won't feel powerful on day 1. But by day 30, you won't just do the action, you'll be the person. And once you trust yourself to follow through, you stop needing the world to validate you. Because progress stops being external. It becomes internal. That's when everything shifts. When the goal isn't to beat the clock or win someone's praise, but to defeat the weaker version of yourself, who always talked about doing the work, but never did. And that's where we're going next. To the place where the only competition is the person staring back at you. You wake up, roll over, and check your phone. Before your feet touch the floor, your mind is already filled with someone else's life. Someone's on a beach, someone ran 5 miles at sunrise, someone just got promoted, and without a word your brain whispers, you're already behind. It's quiet, it's subtle, but it's poison. This is the trap of comparison. The invisible war no one talks about, but everyone loses. The Stoics understood it thousands of years ago. They saw how envy makes the soul restless, how comparison eats away at joy and replaces it with endless striving. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote to himself, ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Self-indulgence means tying it to the things that happen to you. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. The moment you measure your worth by someone else's life, you surrender your peace. It doesn't matter how much progress you're making. If you're always looking sideways, you'll feel behind. That's why Epictetus, born into slavery, crippled in body, but free in spirit, never once compared himself to the elite. He didn't need their titles or luxury. He had something better, sovereignty over his mind. That's the only game worth playing. Because when you compete with yourself, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing and start becoming. Let me tell you about Taylor. 32, office job, reliable, stable. But deep down he always felt small, not because of failure, but because of feeds. Scroll after scroll, all he saw was success. Friends launching startups, influencers meditating on mountaintops, former classmates vacationing in Greece, and here he was, still renting a one-bedroom apartment, still unsure if he was doing anything special. So Taylor did something radical. He disconnected for 48 hours. No social media, no headlines, just silence, a notebook, and a question. What matters to me? He didn't find all the answers, but for the first time in months he felt still, present, enough. When you stop comparing, you start listening. And when you listen deeply enough, you discover something profound. You were never behind. You were just distracted. Historians and philosophers still argue whether Stoic contentment is compatible with ambition. But maybe that's the wrong question. Because the Stoics' real power lies in choosing what to pursue and what to release. You can have goals, dreams, vision, but let them rise from within, not from fear of being less than someone else. Try this exercise. Each night ask yourself, did I act more patiently today than yesterday? Did I respond with more kindness? Did I make one decision that aligned with who I want to become? If you can answer yes to even one, you won. That's the real scoreboard. Quiet, invisible, internal. And the more you focus on it, the less you care about external applause, because here's the truth. No one claps for roots growing underground. But those roots, they're the reason the tree stands tall in a storm. So build deep, build slow, and stop trying to be seen before you're strong. Every time you choose meditation over reaction, presence over performance, silence over validation, you build a little more power. Not the loud kind, the lasting kind. And yes, you will fall short. You'll slip, react, compare. Feel like you're losing the invisible race. That's okay. Forgive yourself. But don't excuse yourself. Adjust your path. Refocus. Continue. Because the warrior mindset isn't about never falling. It's about getting up with awareness. The Stoics taught that we must strive for progress, not perfection. And progress has 3 pillars. Self-awareness. See yourself clearly without excuses. Self-discipline. Do the right thing, especially when no one's watching. Self-honor. Stay committed, even when results come slowly. You don't need to beat anyone else. You only need to beat yesterday. One simple practice to begin this shift. Before bed, write down one thing you did better than the day before. Just one. It could be, I paused instead of snapping back. I walked for 5 minutes. Instead of skipping it, I said no to something that didn't align. Do that for 30 days and you'll build the habit of internal tracking, not external measuring. Because at the end of the day, your only real competition lives in your own reflection. And when you start winning that battle, a new kind of strength emerges, a quiet confidence, not I'm better than them, but I'm better than I was. That's the difference between noise and growth, between popularity and peace, between performance and power. And the best part, it's available every morning. You just have to choose it. Because when you finally stop asking, how do I compare, and start asking, who am I becoming? That's the moment everything resets. And in the space that follows, there's something even more powerful than self-competition. It's what you feel when you stop chasing life and start welcoming it, and that is gratitude. You open your eyes, a new day begins. But before anything happens, before the tasks, the conversations, the decisions, there's a moment. Quiet, empty, waiting. In that space, you could scroll, you could replay worries, you could rush into the chaos, or you could begin with gratitude. Most people don't. They start with noise, notifications, alarms, urgency. They chase what they don't yet have. But few begin by honoring what's already here. And yet gratitude is one of the fastest ways to reset your mindset. Not because it fixes everything, but because it reminds you, not everything is broken. Kyakin. Stoics didn't see gratitude as a luxury. They saw it as a discipline, a practice of presence, of tuning your attention to the simple truth: life as it is already full. Epictetus once said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." But this isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's about remembering that even in the storm, there's something to anchor to. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. At one point in his life, everything fell apart. He lost his job. His marriage ended. He was drowning in debt. No savings. No direction. No peace. He didn't read philosophy. He didn't go to therapy. He didn't meditate. He just started writing down 3 things he was grateful for every single morning. At first it was mechanical. I'm grateful for coffee. I'm grateful for sunlight. I'm grateful I woke up. But slowly something shifted. His brain, so used to scanning for what was wrong, started noticing what was right. 6 months later, he had a job, his health had stabilized, and he'd even begun helping others through a blog. He didn't change his life through some grand reinvention. He changed his lens. Because when you change what you focus on, you change what you feel. And what you feel shapes every decision that follows. Modern neuroscience confirms it. Gratitude activates the brain's reward system, lowers cortisol, and strengthens neural pathways for optimism. But you don't need science to know this. You just need to try it. So do this tomorrow, before your phone hits your hand, before your brain remembers yesterday's drama. Write, "I am truly happy and grateful for," and fill in the blank. But don't just list what you have, include what you want, as if it's already yours. I am truly happy and grateful for the work that lights me up. I am truly happy and grateful for the strong, resilient body that carries me. Your subconscious doesn't care if it's happened yet. It cares about the feeling. And that feeling, it begins the rewiring. Some say this is delusion. The Stoics might disagree. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." If you're always craving, always grasping, you're moving from lack. And when you live from lack, you act out of fear, even when you think you're chasing success. Ever notice how people can achieve so much and still feel empty? That's the danger of ambition without gratitude. You climb a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. But when you act from enough, when you move from abundance, not desperation, your decisions come from clarity, not pressure. Kazuo Inamori, Japanese entrepreneur and founder of Kyocera, once said, "No matter the circumstance, disaster or blessing, embrace things with a heart of gratitude." He wasn't stoic, but he lived its truth, because gratitude doesn't mean settling, it means stabilizing, so that your actions are no longer reactions, they're expressions. That's the power of a gratitude ritual. It grounds you. It softens fear. It strengthens the lens through which you meet the world. Try this habit for the next week. Every morning, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Then write 1 thing you're open to receiving. Not a goal. Not a demand, just something you welcome, like, I welcome a day of deep focus. I welcome peace in moments of stress. I welcome clarity where there was confusion. Simple, honest, real. Because when you tell life you're ready, not needy, things begin to move. Historians still argue whether Stoicism encourages a detachment from desire or a transformation of it. But in practice, gratitude does both. It helps you let go of what you don't control and embrace what you already do. Ask yourself, if tomorrow you only had what you were grateful for today, what would you still have? Let that question sink in. Would you still have your health, your mind, the people you love, or did you forget to say thank you for them? This isn't guilt. It's an invitation to begin differently. To ground yourself in a state that creates clarity, not craving. Because when you start from gratitude, you stop begging life to give you more. And instead, you become someone who's ready to give. Your energy, your attention, your presence. And in that giving, you receive something deeper than any goal: peace. So tonight, before you sleep, whisper this: I am truly happy and grateful for this moment, for this breath, for this chance to choose again. Say it even if you don't fully feel it. Say it until you do, because repetition rewires reality. And tomorrow morning, when the world tries to pull you back into the noise, you'll be rooted in something quieter, something stronger, something real. It doesn't take a 2-hour routine to change your life. It takes one clear decision. Design your mornings before the world does it for you. Because the truth is, if you don't start with strength, you'll be reacting all day long. You'll let urgency dictate importance. You'll chase noise instead of listening to signal. And worst of all, you'll become someone you don't even recognize by noon. But that changes the moment you start designing your mornings like a craftsman, not a bystander. Think about it. Your morning isn't just the beginning of your day. It's the tone setter for how your mind will respond to everything that follows. A warrior doesn't just sharpen their sword in the heat of battle. They sharpen it in silence, before the chaos, before the clash. That's what your morning is for. But most people throw it away. They wake up late, rush into obligation, pour caffeine on top of anxiety, and expect clarity to magically arrive. It doesn't. You have to create it. The Stoics were clear about this. They believed in beginning each day with reflection, anchoring the mind in truth before the tides of emotion and circumstance swept in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That's not just poetic, it's practical. He was preparing his mind for hardship, not to avoid it, but to face it well. Historians still debate what Marcus's morning rituals entailed, but one thing is universally accepted: he journaled daily. Not for Instagram, not for publication, but for mental calibration. You can do the same. Here's how to design your own morning ritual. Not a rigid routine, but a reset structure, flexible yet intentional. Anchor with stillness, even 90 seconds. Sit, breathe, no distractions, just you and the quiet. Let your mind settle before the world enters. Speak a truth aloud, something like, "I lead my thoughts." they do not lead me. Or, I begin with strength, not speed. Saying it out loud grounds it into the nervous system. Choose your lens. Ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not, what do I need to do, but who do I want to be while doing it? Do one thing that aligns, not for productivity, points, for identity. Maybe it's a short walk. Maybe it's 5 push-ups. Maybe it's writing 1 sentence. Small, but symbolic. A gesture of, I'm awake. I'm here. I choose. You don't need candles or chants. You don't need to follow what works for someone else. You need something that works for you. Because if you don't write your script, the day will hand you one, full of other people's demands, random distractions, and the momentum of a mind you never meant to build. That's why a well-designed morning matters. It's not about being impressive. It's about being intentional. Your body will thank you. Your nervous system will calm. Your decisions will sharpen. And most importantly, your mindset will begin the day already aligned. Try this. Before you even get out of bed, whisper something real. I begin gently. I move through this day with strength. I already have everything I need to begin. Words don't have to be fancy. They just have to be yours. Because those first few moments, they're a doorway. Step through with grace, and the entire day shifts. One modern CEO once shared his morning ritual. He drinks water, stares at the ceiling for 2 minutes, and asks, if this were my last day, what would I regret ignoring? That question alone changes everything, because a good morning doesn't start with pressure. It starts with presence, and presence, when repeated, becomes power. Over time, your morning ritual becomes more than a habit. It becomes a compass, a reset button, a silent rebellion against chaos. So when the world pulls you toward distraction, you're already centered. When negativity knocks, your first line of defense is already in place. When doubt whispers, your morning voice is louder. And here's the thing most people miss. It doesn't have to be perfect to be effective. Some mornings your ritual will feel awkward. Some days you'll forget. That's okay. The win isn't in never missing, it's in returning quickly. A Stoic doesn't aim to be flawless. They aim to be flexible, to bend without breaking, to fall and stand back up without shame. So even if today didn't begin well, you can restart right now. Close your eyes, breathe, whisper your words. I return to the present. I choose to begin again. Because that's what strength is. Not perfection, but the capacity to reset deliberately. And once your mornings become sacred, so does your life. Because a life built on rushed mornings is a life of reactivity. But a life built on intention, that's a life of direction. And when your direction is rooted in you, not the chaos, not the news, not the scroll, you start to recognize your own voice again. And that voice is what we'll explore next. Because before any goal, any mission, any change, you must reclaim the one narrative you've lived with the longest. Your inner dialogue. There's a voice in your head that speaks all day long. It narrates your experiences. It labels your emotions. It comments on your reflection in the mirror. It speaks before you do, sometimes louder than anyone else around you. That voice is your inner dialogue. And whether you realize it or not, it's been shaping your mindset for years. But here's the thing, no one tells you. That voice is not always you. Most of it was installed in childhood, in school, by society, by fear. It's not your fault. but it is your responsibility now. Because your inner dialogue is the script that becomes your identity, and identity, once repeated, becomes your reality. So what does your voice sound like? Is it kind, focused, encouraging, or is it critical, fearful, tired? If you're like most people, it's a mix. But often the negative side is louder, not because it's more truthful, but because it's been rehearsed more often. The Stoics knew this. That's why they trained not just their actions but their inner words. Epictetus said, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things. Judgments start as thoughts. Thoughts become stories. Stories become self-image. And if your self-image is built on unexamined words, you'll never feel aligned, no matter how much you accomplish." So tonight we go inward, not to overanalyze, but to rewrite. Start here. Think of one moment today when your inner voice was harsh. Maybe it said, "You're lazy," or "You always mess this up," or "Why can't you just be better?" Now imagine someone said that to a child you love. Did you let them? Then why let yourself? Historians and scholars still discuss whether Stoicism encourages emotion or detachment, but at its core, Stoicism teaches us to govern the self, not shame it. And governing begins with language. Your inner language is like code. You don't have to rewrite the entire system tonight, but you do need to start changing the most dangerous lines from, "I'll never figure this out," to, "I'm figuring it out one step at a time," from, "No one sees me," to, "I see me, and that's enough to begin," from, "I'm not disciplined," to, "I am someone who honors small promises." These aren't affirmations, they're corrections, and when repeated, they become convictions. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who spent decades telling herself she was just not confident. Every job interview, every meeting, that phrase echoed in her thoughts. One day, her coach gave her a sentence to say every morning. "I bring calm and clarity into every room I enter." At first it felt false, but she kept saying it. 2 weeks in, she began sitting taller. A month in, she spoke up in meetings. 6 months later, she was leading those meetings. Nothing changed, except the script. This is the real mental reset, not a motivational spike. A rewrite of the operating code. And yes, it feels awkward at first, like learning a new language. But your brain adapts faster than you think. Neuroplasticity means your thoughts carve grooves. Old grooves deepen with repetition, but new ones begin the moment you say, "That's not true about me anymore." You don't need to believe it yet. You just need to repeat it, because belief follows behavior. Here's a tool you can try tomorrow morning. The 3-line reset. I am the kind of person who. Describe who you're becoming. Example. I am the kind of person who acts with clarity under pressure. Today, I will honor this by. Choose one small aligned action. Example. By taking a breath before responding to stress. Even if I stumble, I will remember. Reassure yourself without shame. Example. That one moment doesn't define my progress. Write these lines. Say them aloud. You'll feel silly at first. Say them anyway, because your subconscious is always listening. And it doesn't need poetry. It needs consistency. Marcus Aurelius journaled daily not to impress history, but to remind himself of who he was. Even emperors needed inner guidance. So do you. Start asking, would I say this to a friend? If not, it doesn't belong in your internal dialogue. Start editing. Delete the sarcasm, remove the shame, add more trust, inject grace. Speak to yourself the way you wish others had when you were struggling. That voice becomes your foundation, because you can't reset your mindset until you rewrite your voice. And once your voice is aligned, your focus sharpens, your energy returns. You start doing what needs to be done without inner resistance. And from there, a new question arises. How do I protect this mindset from the constant noise and distraction of modern life? That's what we'll explore next. How to train your attention. How to reclaim your clarity, and how to lead your life instead of chasing it. Your attention is your most valuable asset, not your time, not your energy, your attention. Because where your attention goes, your life follows. But here's the problem. In today's world, your attention is under siege. Every notification, every scroll, every headline, it's not just pulling your eyes. It's rewriting your focus, stealing your clarity, and feeding your mind a diet of distraction. And if you don't take your attention back, you'll wake up one day with a full schedule and an empty soul. The Stoics knew this long before social media existed. They saw how the human mind could drift, lose its grip, and be ruled by noise. That's why Epictetus warned, if a man gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along without a second thought. Think about that. You protect your passwords, you lock your doors, but do you guard your mind? If not, someone else is using it for their goals, their profits, their agenda. So how do you get it back? You begin by training your focus like a muscle. Not with force, but with returning. Focus isn't about locking into one thing forever. It's about noticing when your mind drifts and bringing it gently back, again and again. And over time, you build mental stamina. Let's start with a simple truth. You don't have an attention problem. You have an overstimulated environment. If you were born in a monastery with no devices, no push alerts, and no pressure to perform, your brain would naturally settle into clarity. But since we live in a world of 1,000 dopamine hooks per hour, you must create micro-boundaries to protect your focus. Here's how to close. Morning silence. No phone for the first 20 minutes. Instead, greet yourself. Write one sentence. Stretch. Breathe. Let your brain wake up before the world hijacks it. Single task windows. Set a timer for 15 minutes. One task, no tabs, no music, just presence. You'll be shocked at how much you can do when your mind is undivided. Digital fast. Choose 1 hour a day, maybe lunch, maybe a walk, where your phone stays silent. Not forever, just enough for your nervous system to reset. Reclaim transitions. Instead of checking your phone between meetings or while waiting in line, breathe. Recite a Stoic reminder. Something like, I control how I respond. I choose calm. Historians still debate whether ancient Stoics like Cleanthes practiced what we'd now call mindfulness, but their teachings reflect it. Presence, observation, restraint. These were cornerstones of the Stoic life. And in modern terms, that's attentional integrity. To be so rooted in purpose that you're no longer tugged by every passing noise. Let me share a modern example. A successful entrepreneur once told me his secret. He scheduled 2 hours a day of blank space. No meetings, no goals, just room to think. He said it was the hardest discipline he ever developed. At first, he told me, it felt like wasted time. But then I realized, that's where I hear my own thoughts. That's where clarity begins. If you want a high-quality life, you must first create high-quality attention. Because a distracted mind doesn't just lose productivity, it loses identity. And if you've ever reached the end of a day and felt disoriented, like you've been moving fast but unsure where you actually went, that's why. Your attention was scattered, but you can take it back. Right now, take one breath. Inhale slowly, hold. Exhale even slower. That was a moment of ownership. String enough of those moments together, and you create a mindset of focus, not scattered reactivity. The Stoics trained this through reflection. Marcus Aurelius would often stop in the middle of the day to ask, "Is this essential?" You can do the same. Next time you catch yourself overwhelmed, pause and ask, "Is this helping me build the life I want? Or is it feeding a version of me I no longer want to be?" Because every scroll, every thought, every distraction either feeds your future or fragments it. Attention is energy. And where energy flows, your character grows. So don't waste it on arguments that don't matter, on people who drain you, on goals that aren't even yours. Your focus deserves better. You deserve better. And the only way to rise above the noise is to root yourself in principle. That's what we'll explore next. Because even with strong focus, you'll still face storms. Emotion, temptation, chaos. The question is, will you respond from emotion or from principle? That's where true strength is forged. Not in silence, but in storm. The world will test you, not once, not twice, but constantly. You'll face people who misunderstand you, emotions that blind you, situations that tempt you to abandon your values. And when that moment comes, when your heart races, your palms sweat, your ego roars, you'll face the most important question of all. Do I act from principle or from impulse? It's easy to act with grace when life is calm. It's easy to talk about wisdom in a quiet room. But when you're in the storm, when the pressure builds, that's when your real philosophy is revealed. That's when the training matters. The Stoics prepared for this. Every day. They didn't hope for peace. They trained for chaos. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Why? Because that delay is a wedge, a breath, a small sacred moment between trigger and reaction. And inside that moment, that's where your freedom lives. Most people don't live by principle. They live by feeling. I feel tired, so I won't follow through. I feel attacked, so I'll lash out. I feel ignored, so I'll shut down. But Stoicism teaches us something radical. You are not your feelings. Feelings are weather. They pass. Principles are architecture. They endure. And yet historians and Stoic scholars still debate. Did the Stoics suppress emotion, or simply see it as something to move through with clarity? The answer likely lives in between. Stoicism doesn't deny emotion, it simply refuses to be ruled by it. Imagine your emotions like wild horses, powerful, unpredictable, beautiful. You don't shoot them, you tame them. You ride them with guidance. And when they bolt, you don't hate them. You just remind them, I'm in charge now. Here's what this looks like in real life. You're in a conversation. Someone cuts you off. You feel heat rising. Your chest tightens. Your jaw clenches. Your old self wants to interrupt, raise your voice, defend. But your trained self, your Stoic self, asks, what's my principle here? Maybe it's I lead with composure, or I choose clarity over control, or I protect my peace, not my pride. And in that moment, you don't suppress the emotion. You channel it. You breathe. You pause. You respond. That's strength. And that strength becomes your identity. not just once, but every time you practice it. Let me give you a tool. Something to use tomorrow morning when life starts pressing your buttons. The principle check. When you feel the rise of anger, of fear, of overwhelm, ask, what am I feeling right now? Name it. That alone disarms its power. What story am I telling myself? Often it's not the event, it's the narrative behind it. What principle do I want to embody? This is the pivot. From reaction to leadership. Let's say you're feeling frustrated with a teammate. Old story. They never respect my input. New story. They're under pressure too. This isn't about me. Principle. I lead with clarity, not assumption. Then, act from that principle. Not because it's easy, but because it aligns. This isn't weakness. This is warfare. Because anyone can yell. Anyone can ghost someone. Anyone can vent, blame, explode. But it takes real strength to choose principle in a moment of chaos. And here's the twist. The more you choose it, the more natural it becomes. At first it feels stiff, like you're pretending. But repetition turns behavior into belief, and belief becomes character. Over time, your default reaction becomes the principled one. Think of it like laying new tracks for a train. You don't need to dismantle the old ones overnight. You just need to lay one new section at a time. Eventually, the train reroutes itself. Let me share something personal. There was a time when I believed that staying silent was strength, that if I didn't react, I was winning. But silence, when motivated by fear or resentment, isn't stoic. It's avoidance. True stoicism isn't silence, it's measured voice. So I learned to speak, not with heat, but with depth. Not with defense, but with direction, and you can too. Start asking this: what kind of person do I want to be, even when things go wrong? Write it down. Maybe it's, I respond with clarity under pressure. I protect peace in conflict. Walk away when ego begs to fight. Repeat it, morning after morning. Because one day someone will test you, and in that moment you'll have a choice. React like you always have, or respond like the person you've trained to become. And when you make that second choice, when you live by principle instead of mood, you'll notice something. You feel lighter. Not because life got easier, but because you're no longer dragging emotional debris from every situation. You're moving from a clean foundation, and from there, you can finally build. Because once you've reset your reactions, once you've stabilized your center, there's only one thing left to do: own who you've become and rest, which is exactly where we're going next. The final chapter. Your new identity and the wind down your mind has earned. You've done the work. You've faced the chaos, rewired the loops, stepped into strength, and chosen principle over noise. And now, after everything, the breathwork, the journaling, the pauses, the whispers of I'm choosing again, there's only one thing left. Own your identity. Not someday. Not once you've earned it. Now. You don't need more proof. You don't need another book, another app, another motivational playlist. What you need is to believe that you've already begun. Because you have. It happened the moment you paused instead of reacting. The moment you got out of bed and repeated a new belief, even if it felt shaky. The moment you stopped trying to feel ready and just did the next thing. That was the reset. And now, you're not someone trying to become disciplined, grateful, present, focused. You're someone who is becoming those things by doing them. And that's the real shift. When your identity becomes aligned with your actions, life stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like flow. Seneca wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." But tonight you're not scattered. You're here, with your breath, with your presence, with the quiet knowing that the strongest thing you can do is often the simplest. Stay with yourself. Most people don't. They chase, they perform, they run from silence. They reject the version of themselves that's still a work in progress, but you're learning to stay. Even when it's messy, even when it's slow, even when the world says be more, you're saying, I'm already enough to begin. That's rare, and that's powerful. Because your identity isn't built on accomplishments, it's built on alignment. Are your actions in line with your values? Are your words a reflection of your vision? Are your mornings a mirror of your deepest priorities? If so, even in small, imperfect ways, then your life is no longer on autopilot. It's being written by you, and that is a sacred thing. Now breathe, because in a few moments we'll slow everything down. But before we do, remember this. You don't have to prove yourself tomorrow. You only have to return to what you've already started. The morning will come. You'll open your eyes and your old patterns may try to sneak back in, but you'll know better now. Because you've rewritten your script, not all at once, but breath by breath, thought by thought, and the story you're living, it's not about perfection, it's about presence. It's about choosing who you are, even when no one's watching, especially then. That's the moment identity locks in. So tomorrow, when doubt rises, when distraction pulls, when emotion swells, pause. Whisper your truth. I don't run old programs anymore. I lead from within. I reset as many times as I need, because there's no finish line for growth, only deepening. And as you lie here now, breathing gently, safe inside your own quiet, let's transition together. You've arrived. Let's wind down. Let's slow everything down now. No more tasks, no more lessons, no more questions to answer. Just you. Just this breath. Let your chest rise gently and fall even softer. Feel the weight of the day lifting, not because it didn't happen, but because it doesn't own you anymore. You are not what you did today. You are who you chose to become, quietly, courageously, consistently. Let that truth settle into your body. Let it hum in your heartbeat, soft and steady. This moment is yours. No deadlines, no judgment, no effort. Just release. Imagine yourself floating, not away from your life, but deeper into it. Not escaping, but resting. Restoring. Like a warrior setting down their sword at night, knowing the battle was met with grace. Like a philosopher closing their journal, satisfied that they lived in alignment with their values. Even just a little, more than yesterday. You did enough. You are enough, and tomorrow it's not a test, it's another chance. To begin, to reset, to return to this soft, clear version of yourself. So breathe it in and let it all go. The doubts, the tension, the need to be anything other than right here. Let your muscles soften. Let your thoughts dissolve like ink in water. Let your body sink into the bed, supported and safe. Because this is your sanctuary. Your reset isn't loud. It doesn't need a trophy. It just needs moments like this. Still, spacious, honest. Where your nervous system whispers, I'm okay. Where your mind stops running and simply rests. Where your spirit, even for 1 minute, knows peace. You've done the work. Now receive the reward, not applause, but calm. Let it wash over you now. Gentle, deep, real. You've arrived. Sleep well. Sweet dreams.